The metaverse for education is an absolute killer app. It's April 2022, and this is the Pilote Podcast with David Fuller and Cory Smith. Hello, Cory. How are you?
I'm real good, dude. How are you?
I'm very well. You've got a new cap. What is the logo on the cap?
Oh, this is the brand new 2022 Braves cap.
Okay.
It's the Atlanta Braves logo. The Braves baseball has just begun.
Some branding agency got paid a fortune for that.
Of course they did. and the Braves will make a fortune on it.
And what is it? Is it a hand holding up a baseball or?
Oh no, that's a feather.
Oh,
right. We have to be culturally sensitive these days with the.
But you still have to have a hint to the origin of the brand.
Right. So, that's right. So they didn't want to go full on, because previously in the 70s or the 80s, we had the Brave, like the full on American, Native American, and they've shied away from that. And then we've had the A, and this is a throwback, this feather to a previous logo.
Right. Interesting.
So
if you hadn't told me what it was, I wouldn't have known. My favorite one of those is the Sprint logo. Do you know what the Sprint logo is?
No, I don't.
Yeah, it's kind of like a fan. It looks like a fan.
Right. Isn't that a throwback to Nextel? This
is branding. This is one of my favorite branding stories. And like all my stories, it could be completely wrong. I am told that graphic represents a pin dropping.
What?
And you can kind of see it. You can kind of see that if someone dropped a pin, it would bounce up off the floor and create that kind of shape. The quality of the call on Sprint was so clear you could hear a pin drop.
Okay. I did never associate that with it.
I mean, I think that's where it came from.
Really?
I nearly didn't get online tonight. I came downstairs. I just had my dinner, and I came into my space here, and I got a blue screen on my laptop because Microsoft had decided to do an update, and it was 75% into an update. And we talked about this last week. How can they not know my schedule? They know my outlook. They know that I'm meant to be doing a call at this time. I do it every week at the same time, and yet this is the time they've decided that they should do an update. Maybe they think they're being helpful. I don't know.
I'm still struggling with you're running Windows.
What else would I be running?
Why don't you have a Mac?
Because I don't like Mac.
I knew you were going to say that. I had to do it.
I have an iPad. I love my iPad. Amazing piece of kit. But for doing actual work, my PC, actually, I think this one is I don't even know what this one is. Oh, this one's an HP. The one I had before this was an Asus, which is an interesting story, actually. I lost it in Dubai. I was on the metro, and I was taking photos out of the Dubai metro, and I had my laptop in a backpack, and I left it on the train. I was running to an event, and I got halfway, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes out of the station, and realized that my bag was still on the train.
Oh.
So my bag had my laptop, my Bose noise-cancelling headphones, and a bunch of other kit, because I was going to a media event, so I was going to record it, and I think it had a gimbal and a bunch of other technology in my backpack that I just literally left on the train. I walked back into the station, and I said to the policeman there, I said, "Look, I left my bag on the train," and he said, "Okay, that's cool." He took my number. This is a fantastic story for Brand Dubai if you've never been to the place. A couple of hours later, the policeman texted me, my personal mobile, and he said, "We haven't found your bag, but look, we're going to keep looking. And if you're anywhere else in the world, you just wave it goodbye. Maybe hope
forget it.
Maybe hope you have insurance." And you go, "Okay, well." Anyway, I went to the next day. I went to the main central lost and found, and I said, "I lost my laptop." 24 hours later, I still hadn't heard anything from them. So I went online and I bought myself a new laptop, and didn't think anything of it. And then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from the Dubai police saying, "We found your bag." So I went to the main police station in north of Dubai, just near the airport, and there was the bag, completely intact with every single thing that was in it still in it.
What?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
It's a different place.
Yeah.
All that is to say that I'm currently running an HP PC, which has just finished an update from Windows. Thank you very much, Microsoft.
I can't believe you got your stuff back. I would have walked out of the train realizing I've lost my backpack with all my gear in it, and then immediately walked to an Apple store and bought a new computer. I'd have just written it off. I've been like, yeah, forget it. It's gone.
It's just that kind of place. There's a certain amount of surveillance, shall we say? And
did somebody lose a? Let me ask you: did somebody lose a hand?
No. So there is an incentive to behave in a nice, civilized fashion, shall we say?
Right.
That was a little digression from as to why I am currently using an HP PC laptop, and not an Apple.
Have you considered other operating systems as a follow-up question?
You know what? Not for my main computer. And the main reason for that is switching costs.
Yeah.
I've used a PC for 25 years. Honestly, since NT, which was what, 99, I think NT came out. I've never 2000. I run my PC 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I cannot remember the last time it crashed.
We've had this Mac versus PC thing before. I used to be a PC guy many years ago. And when the world of development switched to Linux-based development in the web, when things started to get kind of Linux stack, I switched to Mac, and it was a hard transition. And then I fell in love with it. But at this stage of my life, I just love my Mac because it just works. It doesn't crash. And I don't spend copious amounts of time on the computer that I don't have to after hours. You know what I mean?
Right. So, but the other reason that I use a PC is that I'm a gamer.
Right. And you have to. If you're a gamer and you want to be on a PC, which I appreciate. Both my sons are gamers.
That's the reason I've always had a PC, because my dad, I had a Mac Plus. My dad had a Mac Plus, the little gray box with the tiny little gray screen in the front, and the A drive in the front of it. And I loved it because I was one of the only kids that had a Mac back in the day. And that was when MacWrite and MacPaint and whatever else, they were awesome applications before Microsoft Office. They were brilliant. It had a mouse, and it was an awesome piece of kit.
Right.
But I couldn't play games on it. All my mates were playing games on their Commodore 64s and their PCs, but my Mac, I couldn't play games on my Mac. So I went out and bought a very expensive 386 PC.
Oh my gosh.
Which I configured and spent a ton of money on. This thing had a 40 megabyte hard drive and I think 1 megabyte of memory.
Was it like $1,200?
For me, it was a very, very, very expensive purchase.
Yeah, I remember. I bought one too. I think the first one I bought was $1,200.
Yeah,
but it was a lot of money back then.
But I got to play some great games on it because I didn't have a console, and consoles back then weren't that amazing. So the main reason why I've been a PC guy and not a Mac guy is because I'm a gamer. Yeah.
I used to be a gamer too and played many on my PC. And then when my kids were younger, they wanted an Xbox, and then we got a PlayStation, and they switched me. How hard it is. I'm sure of switching from keyboard and mouse to the controller, learning how to do this.
Yeah.
And then I learned how to do that. And then they went back to the computer, and I'm like, nah, I'm not switching. I'm staying on my PlayStation. So I play all the games I play on the PlayStation now. So I'm like, I'm not gaming on the computer anymore. I'm staying on the PlayStation.
I have three gaming platforms. So I have my PlayStation, I have my PC, and I have my iPad. I do enjoy some of the iPad games.
Oh yeah, the iPad games are good. Do you have a new PlayStation now?
I haven't got a 5. So I'm waiting for Sony to send me one in the mail. Hint.
Yeah, hint, plug. Yeah, send us
with a VR headset. Thank you very much.
Hey, Sony, if you're listening, please send us a PlayStation. I would have one if I could get one. You can't get one here. I don't know if you...
I think you can. I think you can get them here.
They came out, 2 Christmases ago? And they just weren't available. And, people, the very few that you can get, people snatch them up and they sell them for like $800 on eBay.
There is a news story that I saw this week that Sony has. So let me read this. Sony and the Lego family invest $2 billion in Fortnite creator Epic Games. The news arrives hot on the heels of a partnership announced by Epic and Lego. Announced by Epic and Lego last week, aimed at co-developing a family-friendly metaverse for kids. What could go wrong? A family-friendly metaverse for kids, even if it's done by Lego. I'm seeing some alarm bells.
Yeah. Why?
This is obviously the place to be. We're just talking about gaming. You and I are of a generation where gaming is kind of just part of life. And we've seen Microsoft make some big investments in this space. Sony is obviously into gaming in a big way anyway.
Yeah.
And the PlayStation is a platform that I can see being a mass market entry into the metaverse via a Sony PlayStation and headset. That seems like something that I can understand. Yeah, so Microsoft have made an acquisition. Sony is making acquisitions. Animoca Brands this week acquired Eden Games, which is the developer of Need for Speed and Porch Unleashed. This happened at the same time that I don't know how this happened, but they lost their license for their NFT F1 game. I don't know what order this happened in, but basically they shut down an officially licensed Formula One game that people had spent real money on NFTs, but they've either forgot to renew their license or they didn't want to pay the premium that F1 was asking for the license. But either way,
really,
the Animoca F1 game is no more. The gaming companies are the ones that know how to build virtual worlds, right? They know how to create
fun and
experiences in virtual worlds.
Well, it's clear this is where Microsoft is going. And it's funny that you brought that up. I just had a call with Microsoft for work. We're doing some point of view work for like some executive summary stuff for them, some consulting work. And of course, that's all kind of peppered with the future of this industry as viewed through the lens of Microsoft technology, right? And so they always provide us with a list of kind of talk tracks or things that their vision casting is. And in previous iterations of this, there was a lot of stuff about Web3 and the metaverse for business. It's all disappeared.
Really?
Yeah, it's all been taken out. There's like a very few, but it's very few because they were talking a lot about their HoloLens product and stuff. Is that they're focusing all their effort on like Xbox, like consumer based, because that's where their strength is. They know that's where their money is that's where the money's gonna be made in the short term.
Yeah, maybe, but I think they probably sell more copies of Office 365 than they do whatever their big.
Sure, but what's the play for Microsoft in the metaverse in the short term?
It's like we said last week. It's corporate private metaverses where people work.
Right, and you would think that like that's a big play for Microsoft, or has been in the last 5 or 10 years, is the reimagining the workplace, the digital workplace, right? Which is Office 365, Teams, all of that kind of, Yammer, digital productivity tools, right?
And they've got a metaverse style add-on to Teams. I can't remember what it's called now. But they have a sort of 3D virtual world add-on to Teams, which uses the HoloLens. So I'm kind of surprised that they've that, or maybe that's just now turning the handle business as usual, and they're looking to the next thing. That
could be true too. They really haven't talked about it. I just thought it was interesting that those kind of topics have disappeared. Before the business applications proliferate, there's going to have to be consumer adoption. And that's where the money's going to be made in the short term, because you have to get consumer adoption before you get business adoption. Wouldn't you agree or no?
No, I think you can charge a premium for the business stuff. You can have same as like video conferencing, right? Video conferencing was one of those things that only big companies could afford, or fax machines or photocopiers or video conferencing. You know, it was something that you could add a massive premium to that only the biggest companies could afford in the short term. So I can see that a sort of metaverse style VR workspace is something that they could charge a premium for a small number of users, rather than trying to get millions of users to trying to adopt something, in a consumer space.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah,
I think it belongs to. The spaces belongs to Microsoft. They're obviously have the deepest penetration in the marketplace for productivity tools. They own the largest market share of that space. I just don't think their tools are the best. Who bought MailChimp? Intuit? There's some big company recently, Intuit. So Intuit, the company that makes QuickBooks, bought MailChimp, which is a weird, unlikely pair.
Tell me about Meta's plans to.
Did you see this in the news?
No, I haven't. This was news to me. So tell me about this. What Meta plans to do in terms of their metaverse, marketplace. I guess you call it a metaverse marketplace.
Meta has not even released their gateway to the web, but to the metaverse, and the cash grab has begun. Right? I don't know if they announced it or it's been leaked, but they plan to take a nearly 50% cut on virtual asset sales in the metaverse, in the metaverse, in their version of the metaverse. So anything that's sold, if you're a vendor that sells things, just think of it the same way as you're a purveyor of apps in the App Store, or you sell music in iTunes. This is what Metaverse is going to take a cut of whatever the wares you sell. 50%. 50%.
Okay.
That's a lot. Apple charges 30%.
Yeah, I know. And that sounds like a lot, but how much do you pay for a coffee at Starbucks?
That's beside the point. I don't want to talk about it.
No, it's
I'm just kidding.
How much do you pay for a coffee at Starbucks?
I pay $5.
And how much does that cost?
How much does the coffee cost?
Yeah.
Oh, less than $1, I'm sure.
Right. So they're making a lot more than 50%.
Yes.
And
they all know my name at Starbucks.
And yet we accept, in a physical world, we accept 300% markup, 400% markup, 500% markup. But for some reason in the web, we don't. And I can.
But that's as a consumer.
I can hold both these ideas in my head at the same time. You have to hold both these ideas in your head at the same time. If you look at any of the delivery companies like Uber Eats or Deliveroo or whatever around the world, Wolt, there's thousands of them now, but they're charging 20% as a fee to deliver the goods.
I can accept as a consumer a markup if it's a convenience for me. So, like as an example, because I argue with my wife about this constantly, there's a company here in America called Instacart. Well, they mark stuff up, but I go on an app, I can order the 5 things I need from the local grocery store, and they drop it off at my door, and I don't have to leave, right? I don't have to deal with it. So it's worth it for the additional. But
is it worth it for the company, for the businesses? Because they're getting charged probably 25%, 30%.
But I don't, as a consumer, I don't mind paying the markup because that's a convenience fee for me. So,
right.
But as a seller,
so this is the problem. That one of the Web3 arguments, that there are rent-seeking players within the value chain, and they're getting a disproportionate share. There's a couple of things going on here.
50% is steep?
It depends if they're hosting all your content for free.
Bear with me. Isn't that the promise of Web3? It's the creator economy.
Right. But you can't have it all, because at the end of the day, if you're creating an hour's worth of video every day and you're uploading it onto YouTube, for free, and YouTube is providing you an audience of 1 billion people without paying for
then they're going to put ads
discovery or anything else, right?
Right.
So you as the content creator have got a choice. You could have your own website. You could host your own video and pay to host your own video, and you could pay to attract 1 billion people to your website and hope that they find you. But you're getting all of that for free from YouTube, but you're expecting them not to take anything in return for that?
No, I expect to pay something in return, but not 50%.
Well, you're not paying anything on YouTube.
No, not on YouTube, where they're putting ads and stuff on it now, right?
Yeah,
which is what everybody complains about,
right? And the content creators are saying, "Oh, I only get 10%." Well, so what? You're not paying anything; you're getting everything for free. So stop whinging.
Right, that's right. I agree with that. Right, I agree with what you're saying.
And the same with, if you think about a mall, a mall will charge rent on the store because they're doing the marketing and they're the destination. They're attracting the people. They're bringing the traffic into the mall. And if you want to be in the food court in the biggest mall in town, it's going to cost you a bunch in rent. And maybe that's 30% of your revenue goes in rent. The mall is the company that's bringing the people to you to enable you to make your sales. You can go and build your own store in the middle of nowhere and hope that people will find you. Right. And not pay the mall 30%.
But that would be like hosting your website, right? So if you're renting a store in the mall.
If you can create your own metaverse and bring people into it, then fine. You don't get a 30% surcharge on whatever you're selling. But if you want to be in the metaverse that they've created over 20 years of branding, and maybe 30% isn't a bad fee to be paying.
30%, I think, is circling reasonable. So let's back that analogy up. So, like, if you rent a store in the mall and the mall's bringing people to you, I feel like that's more akin to renting a website and hosting your own videos, right? Whereas I think in this model, like Meta, is more like you have a product and you're taking it to Walmart, and Walmart is selling it and putting it on the shelf in their store, right? And they're taking 50% of whatever they sell that product for. Now, Walmart
is taking 50%.
Though that's what I was going to say. I don't know what Walmart takes from people when they sell a product in their store, but 50% feels like a lot. And then
I would say at least, if I look at the list price of something in Walmart versus what they're selling at retail, it depends, because they've got a model where they're very high volume and maybe their margins are slightly lower, and therefore they're making 2 or 3% or 7%. 30% or 50% is more of a luxury markup. So it's about market power. So is it the same for everybody?
But this isn't the end of the story. So Meta is charging a 50% fee to the creator,
right?
Which includes a hardware platform fee of 30%. So it's 30% hardware platform fee, 20% Meta, because you got to pay its fee. Then Horizon Worlds, if it's within that world, charges another 17.5% on top of that. So you're paying 67.5% in fees. Why even create content?
Well, you won't. You'll go to a platform that is a more decentralized Web3 thinking platform. But, and that doesn't even include it. You have to buy land in Meta's metaverse.
Correct.
We have no idea what that looks like, right?
And that's I guess that's where I'm going with this, is like, we've discussed this for many weeks. Meta is going to be the consumer / family friendly AOL style entree to the metaverse, right? Or to the Web3.
Yeah.
This is where people are probably going to have their first experience with it. So to most companies, they're going to be like, well, we got to be on Meta because that's where everybody's going to go first. And I don't disagree with that. I think that's probably true. However, I'll tell you what, if I were a developer, I would be like giving them the middle finger. I'm not paying 67%.
Well, you've got to do that against what the cost it would be to build your own metaverse and attract people to it.
Using infinite thinking and not being a reactionary business person, I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to just kind of kick back and wait for the metaverse to mature for 3 years, and then I'll start thinking about writing some software. I don't need to be first to market.
You don't,
right?
And a lot of people are going to waste a lot of money being early.
That's right. It's going to be. I'd love to get your thoughts on that, but I feel like it's going to be once again a gold rush. Everybody's going to rush to be first to market, and 80% of them are going to fall off in 2 years.
That's assuming that Meta even makes it.
Very good point. Very good point.
I can see a universe where there is never a metaverse because they just fall over before they get there. Someone else comes out of left field and takes over.
We've never actually discussed that, but that is absolutely a possibility where it just fails. I
mean, I remember MySpace, and I remember. I deliver digital marketing training courses. Someone will use Instagram as 90% of their marketing spend will go on Instagram, and I say to them, well, you need to think about a possibility or a future where Instagram doesn't exist. If you're putting 90% of your marketing spend into Instagram, you need a backup plan that says what happens if Instagram suddenly disappears and goes away.
That's a super interesting idea, and I'm glad you said it out loud. The metaverse may not. Well, I think
that the metaverse is going to happen, but the metaverse,
right? Yeah, right. That's what I mean.
I can see a point where I think Facebook doesn't get there.
I think you're right, man. I think, it's interesting that, like I said, that really just sparked a lot of thoughts, and we don't have to belabor this topic, but I'll say one more thing. I think there's a misconception out there that somehow that Meta has all this money and they've got a corner in the market on the brain power and the technology to build they're building the metaverse. I hate to tell you, there's a lot of people out there building the Web 3. Let's call it the Web 3, and it's been there before Zuckerberg got involved, and it'll be there long after he's gone. And it's out there now, regardless of Meta, and it's very, very possible that they could roll out their big, whatever Death Star metaverse, whatever it's going to be, and people are just like, whatever, this is trash. And the other people that are developing Web3 could just continue to plow forward and develop something that's even cooler, and people kind of latch onto it.
It's because it's Facebook, right? And they don't seem to read the room very well. But there is a lot of backlash, even against Apple, which, let's face it, Apple is a much-loved brand.
Yeah.
And even Apple is starting to get people, well, they've had it since the beginning, but people are starting to say 30%, a bit too much in the App Store. If I have to buy an in-app purchase, Apple's getting 30% just because it's on. I just happened to download the app via their platform onto one of their devices. Why does a purchase within an app on that platform have to give Apple 30%? I understand rent. I understand that if we go back to our mall example, let's take the most simple case that you rent your store from the mall. They charge you rent based on what they think the traffic and the revenue might be from the store of that size in that space. There are certain malls that also charge a percentage of revenue.
Yeah.
So they charge rent and a percentage of revenue. From an Apple point of view, that seems like a reach, that somehow Apple should get a percentage of revenue from your app just because your app was once downloaded from their store and is on one of their devices. Once it's on your device, it doesn't seem like they're doing anything to actually help generate that revenue, and therefore why should they get a percentage of that revenue? If Apple's facing that backlash, and they are, there's a lot of people who are saying, why should I pay Apple 30%? Then I can't see how Meta is going to be able to justify a 50% charge on something they haven't even built yet.
Brilliant.
Thanks for joining us. If you are listening on a podcast app, you may not know that each episode of the Pilote Podcast has its own page featuring links to topics and articles referenced in the show. You can also find outtakes and bonus content. So check it out. I saw a post this week, which was an interesting one. This guy had put up a post that basically says, here is how you can launch a startup business in 15 days. And he'd listed a whole bunch of free or cheap SaaS tools. Some of which I think are a good idea, and some of them I think are not so great. There's a step in there that says, get your brand done on this site in 40 minutes. As a branding guy, that rubbed me up the wrong way, but there's a few of them that I think, okay, yeah, I can get to market, and I've done this.
Yeah,
that's neither here nor there. So that wasn't really the point. The point was that he had this list of 15 steps that people could do to get online. But my comment, which was a throwaway comment, and I didn't really think anything of it, the word strategy does not appear anywhere in this post. And I'm wondering how you can build a business in 15 days without a strategy.
Yeah.
And
I actually saw your post, by the way.
And his response took me back a little bit. He actually said, I've been in business for a while, but I still don't know what business strategy means.
So I'm going to ask a dumb question. Maybe what business is he in?
I don't think it matters.
So if your business, and I actually have a friend that has a business that does this. If you have a business, I won't reveal who this person is, but I'll tell you what the business is to give you the context of it. So he has a business where he manufactures custom novelty golf balls, right?
Okay. Yeah.
He has them manufactured in China. He has them shipped here, and he sells them almost exclusively on Amazon, right? He's like a third-party seller. And that's his entire business. And he does a tremendous amount of marketing, but it's all tactical. There's no strategy, really. Right. It's all like social media paid social media marketing, paid Amazon marketing. Does he need to have that? And he's successful. Does he need strategy? In your opinion?
Yes.
I have my opinion. Okay.
Yes. Well, he has a strategy. He might not have enunciated it, but he has a strategy in that he's going to sell golf balls that nobody else sells. Now that's a strategy. There's a strategy that says I'm going to source them from China because it's cheaper than sourcing them from the US.
That's right.
That's a strategy. Right. He's got a strategy. He might be doing things on a tactical basis, but he has made strategic decisions, whether or not he's written them down.
He's realized
strategy. He does have a strategy. I wrote a blog about it, which I'll put in the show notes as to why I think. I can't believe that I'm trying to explain to people why they need a strategy. There were certain people in the thread saying, "Oh yeah, but what if you just want to fail fast and fail forward?" And I'm like, "Great,
that's bullshit." Right?
But it's a strategy.
People, and this is a thing that I'm actually writing about too, and a completely separate thing, but it kind of connects to this, is that people, as an example, people have heroes or idols. They idolize Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or Sam Walton or whoever, right? And then they want to emulate them. They want to emulate their success, and in order to, in the effort to emulate their success, they emulate their behavior. And it's not the behavior that you need to emulate the success or to repeat the success. It's the mindset or the thing. Right. That's what's lost, right? Is they try to emulate the behavior and not the thinking. And what you just said is someone who's trying to emulate the behavior. Oh, it's fail fast, fail forward. Bullshit. Thinking is strategy. That's what you have to emulate.
It doesn't have to take that long. You can just get some gray hair, get a non-executive director, get a mentor, get some advisors, get some people who've been there, done that. It doesn't have to be a 1,000-page report from Gartner or Accenture. It can be 5 bullet points. Your strategy can be 5 bullet points, as long as you've thought about it and written it down. How many videos on YouTube do you think there are? 5 things I wish I knew before I did X.
Lord.
Right?
Millions.
Which, again, comes down to the reason why you need a strategy. There's a story which will always stick with me. Back in the day when I worked for Unilever sent me on a management training course. Whichever training company it was had this game, which was part of the management training course. And it was a turn-by-turn game. We all got broken up into teams, and it was kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure style, turn-by-turn simulation, if you like. The main aim of the game was that you had to travel out into the desert and find the buried treasure and come back. And whoever came back with the most treasure won. There were a few decisions that you had to make, like how much food were you going to buy, how long it would take you to travel to where the treasure was, how long you spent digging up the treasure, and how long it took you to come back. So there were a few rules and things that decisions you need to make to win the game. There was one thing you could do at the beginning of the game. You could give up a day. All the other teams would start and go, and you would lose a turn, you would lose a day, and you would have to pay a certain amount of your budget to stay in town and talk to the old man in town.
Yeah.
It was really interesting because we were pretty young at the time. We were young managers. We were headstrong and thought we knew everything. And I think there might have been 6 teams in the training. They divided us up into 6 teams. 5 of those teams decided just to run off out into the desert and go and get the treasure, maybe by luck or some sort of intuition or gut feel. I said, no, let's not. Let's stay in town, lose a day, pay the money, and talk to the old man. And the old man, he then gave us a piece of information that none of the other 5 teams had. And the old man said, well, there's a dust storm every 3 days. And if you travel during the dust storm, you lose half of your food. And if you're traveling back from getting the treasure, you lose a percentage of the treasure that you have. Yeah. So you can choose to stop and not travel during that day. And if you're moving during that day and the dust storm hits, you basically get a penalty. So we could then make a plan based on the information from the old man. We could say, right, we're going to travel for 2 days, stop. All the other teams didn't have that information. So on the 3rd day, while they were out there, they were losing food, they were losing treasure. And we were like, okay, we're a day behind, but we caught up because we knew this information. And it taught 3 valuable lessons. 1, data is really good. The more data you have, the more information you have, the better. The second thing is that data enables you to build a strategy. If you have that data and you make a plan based on that data, then you are in a better place than people who just rush on ahead without having that thing. And the third lesson was around the importance of advisors and mentors, and just people who've been there, done that, and have the knowledge that they can pass on.
We don't have these kind of games anymore.
Unilever was a very paternalistic company, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm actually saying that as a good thing. And that brings me on to this idea of what I call the failure paradox. I think people should be allowed to fail. There is a lot to be said for learning by failing, but failure is expensive, right?
Yeah, well,
I was lucky enough to work in an organization that had 300,000 people. And if you stuff up, then, okay, fine. It's built in. There'll be a certain amount of stuff ups and they can absorb it. But if you're running an incredibly lean supply chain or business or process, and there's no room for failure. So failure becomes, even though I think it's important for the development of people, in certain situations, it becomes incredibly expensive to fail.
Well, yes. But if you create an organization that focuses on iterating, right? Like, I don't want to get all like preachy about agile ways of working and POCs and, whatever. You can create like that kind of fail fast, fail forward environment where it's safe to fail at a low cost and learn quickly so that you can create better and faster over time. But that takes a certain amount of courage at the top of the organization to do that, which doesn't often exist.
This is why I said last week that I believe that the metaverse for education is an absolute killer app.
Yeah.
If you can do simulations in the metaverse and
Digital
fail
twins,
within those simulations that have absolutely no impact on the business, then that seems to me to be an absolute game changer, because you have people who can learn from failure. It's like a flight simulator. How can we build these simulations within VR or mixed reality that allow people to fail and learn from those mistakes without having necessarily any impact on the larger business.
Do you remember back when we were young, there used to be a lot of, and this even continued further forward. Back when we were young, there were a lot of text-based games before there were graphic games, like Oregon Trail, or and it was a lot of like these decision tree-based games that had kind of like that component of what you're talking about, where you had to like stop and talk to people, get advice, collect data.
Well, even before that, I read books that were like that. There was a series of books called Choose Your Own Adventure.
Choose Your Own Adventure.
Said if you want to do X, turn to page 12, and if you want to do Y, turn to page 52.
Of course, because of the way things have evolved, it's lost. Like people, it won't hold or capture people's attention the way it did, back when the earth cooled, when you and I were young. Critical thinking skills, or fostered critical thinking skills, that is lost now, don't you think?
No, and again, there's one group of people who have incredibly good critical thinking skills over and above other people, and again, it's gamers. And of all those millions of YouTube videos that say, here's 5 things I wish I knew before, the next part of that sentence is 5 things I wish I knew before I started playing Red Dead Redemption. 5 things I wish I knew before I started playing Fallout 4. I mean, if you want to take it to the level that I do, and I mean, a lot of other people take it to a much deeper level than I do, is there's a certain role-playing element to it that says, well, am I doing a sniper build-out, or am I doing a brawler build-out, or a melee build-out, or am I doing a... So I would argue that people who play those types of games and are exposed to those types of decision-making have an accelerated understanding of... It's basically simulated risk and decision-making in a non-fatal...
Do you think it's
non-fatal environment?
Do you think it's as sophisticated? Even, I mean, like, it's obviously more sophisticated technology, but do you think the decision-making presentation and the type of decisions that we're asking gamers to make today is as potent as it once was?
Yeah.
Or do you think you think so?
I do. Well, I mean I remember trying to play something like Monkey Island, LucasArts Monkey Island back in the day, and I'd have to ring up my mates and go, I'm completely stuck. And this was before you could just watch a YouTube video that would tell you the answer on how to get through it. You would literally have to nut it out, and you'd have to try 12 different things, and then you'd realize you'd gone completely the wrong way, and you'd have to go back. I think I mentioned a game a few weeks ago by Gala called Townstar, and it's a sort of a Web3 version of Farmville, and it's one of those games that I am going to incorporate into my training courses, because it's one of those games that there's a piece of information. If you know a certain piece of information, you'll play that game in an incredibly different way to if you don't know that information. And the only way you can get that information is by playing the game and failing. You play the game and you go, I failed. You play the game and amend your strategy. You have a different strategy, and then you may fail again, but okay, I learned. I've got to do that next time. You play it again. You amend your strategy and play it again. And I do think that there are, I'm not necessarily talking about Candy Crush or basic shoot 'em ups. I'm talking about open world adventures and role-playing style strategy game. And there is actually a whole genre of games on every platform called strategy games. Big fan of strategy games as a way of helping people make better decisions in business. The Pilote Podcast is going on the road. In May and June, I'll be in Dubai. So if you have something to say about disruptive technology or ideas, why not get in touch?
Did you see the announcement from the Pentagon?
I did not.
They just confirmed first ever interstellar visitor to Earth. But It's not as exciting as you think. It's not an alien. It's not an extraterrestrial being. The United States Space Command has confirmed in a study from 2014 that a team of astronomers in fact, detected a meteor that collided with Earth, obviously very small, that originated outside of our solar system. So an actual interstellar meteor, which I think is pretty cool. It's the only rock or the only third interstellar object ever detected in our solar system that came from outside of our solar system. That's kind of cool. If you're like a space nerd like me.
I think that's cool. The only question I have is, why did it take nearly 10 years to work it out?
Well, budget cuts, Space Force, they're like, probably, some kid found this rock in a cow field, or they're like, look at this rock. That's interesting. And it got passed around, somebody's like, hey, we should probably show this to somebody in the government. I don't know. They didn't say.
Maybe they've been trying to hide the fact that there's been a rock from outer space, because
right. We don't want to spook the natives.
The QAnon crowd have a field day with that.
See, they've been hiding it from us. What do they know?
It's the origin of coronavirus.
Right, exactly.
I can understand that the powers that be might want to protect the fact that a rock from outside the solar system landed on Earth.
It's full of unobtainium. What was that? Don't Look Up. Remember that movie that came out earlier this year?
I did. I watched half of it. I didn't get through the whole lot because it just descended into farce. It was a great idea, and the first 30 minutes was awesome. But there was just a point where I went, eh.
It was a comedy. It was
I'm not going to watch
it
this anymore.
Funny.
I know, and like I said, I like the Adam Project. I watched all of that, but I didn't watch all of Look Up.
Are you threatened by Leonardo DiCaprio's good looks?
No. Do we have time to talk about Stranger Things? I've never watched an episode of Stranger Things.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say, when I saw, I was sitting on the back porch yesterday. I don't remember what.
Could you be any more Georgia?
No. I couldn't be any. That's true. I spend as much time on the porch as possible when the weather's nice. Sitting outside, having some coffee, and I got an alert on my phone, pops up, season 4, final trailer, and premiere date announced. I'm like, oh geez, I got to go look at this right now. Of course, I saw the trailer. I was very giddy as a schoolgirl, and then they announced the date of when the show's coming back, which is May 27th. That's a very short time from now. That's like 5 weeks. I have to admit, I peed a little bit, just a little bit. I couldn't control myself because I love this show on many levels. I don't know if have you ever watched it?
No, I haven't.
Have you really not? It's like everything. So again, not to show that I'm going to tell my age, grew up in the 80s, right? So it's obviously set in the 80s, and it's like some sort of weird cross between Steven Spielberg and Stephen King is the best way I can describe it, right? It's a fabulously written, amazingly filmed, wonderfully written show, and it's just everything that I love about movies from the 80s. It's got every element of like science fiction, horror, like the whole like kids thing of like the Goonies, right? It's got everything that you love about 80s movies, like those 80s tentpole movies, and the show is so good. And so I was just gripped by this show season after season, and then the pandemic happened, so this show has not been on since the 4th of July 2019.
Wow.
And they film it here in Atlanta because Atlanta is the Hollywood of the South. They film everything, all the the Marvel movies they film here, and so I know that they've been filming because I've seen them filming it 2 years ago. I'm like, when the frick is this show going to come out? And so they finally announced the date, and I couldn't be more excited. This is probably my favorite show of all time. Other than Miami Vice. If you remember Miami Vice from the 80s, I love that show.
That's a big call. I was more a Magnum PI fan.
I love Magnum PI was a great show too. And then they brought it back. Like they revived it.
I didn't watch the reboot. But I definitely
they don't need to reboot that.
I hear that the long-awaited sequel to Top Gun is imminent.
Yeah, well, it's been in the can for 2 years, and they're supposed to release it, I think, on Memorial Day this year.
Okay,
that's what they said. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go see it. Like, even if it comes out and it's Rotten Tomatoes says it's crap, I'm gonna have to see it.
In my collection of real-world, old-school, non-NFT collectibles, I have a movie ticket stub. When I went and saw Top Gun on the IMAX.
What?
And to make things better, the reason that I kept the ticket is that I was actually sitting in seat F14.
What? That is amazing. Yeah, I've saved a few ticket stubs. I have an original ticket stub from like Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is one of my favorite movies. Yeah, I save stuff like that too. The movies used to be a big deal back when you actually had to go to the theater, and like all the tentpole movies, which like they kind of faded out in the 90s. You know what I mean? But it was like Raiders and the Star Wars movies.
What do you mean they faded them out in the 90s? If every Avengers film wasn't a tentpole movie, then what was it?
Well, yeah, you're right. But there's a period of time, which I'm not going to say was bad. I would say quite the opposite. It was good. There was a period of time, like probably when you and I were in college, where there was like this revival of the kind of independent film, which was like kind of a resurgence of the late 70s.
Kevin Smith, I think, was a big part of that, wasn't he?
Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, like all of these guys did these really great, like really unique films of that.
And
time.
even the working title guys out of the UK.
People.
Guy
Ritchie.
Yeah, Guy Ritchie, definitely. Lock Stock's one of my favorite films.
Fantastic movie. And that was a wonderful time for movies. And then we had this we had to go back to tentpole, but it was all shit. It was like Transformers and all these crap like Con Air and
hey, don't you diss Con Air. Con Air is a brilliant film.
Yeah, Michael Bay. I don't know. Movies of that.
How can you have a film with Steve Buscemi and John Malkovich in it and say it's rubbish? I mean, come on.
Well, and John Cusack.
No, he wasn't good. He wasn't good in it. But I never.
Who else was it? Oh,
I never took him as
Cage.
Nicolas Cage was a bit Nicolas Cage. Come on, Malkovich and Buscemi were amazing in that film.
But they're always good.
Yeah.
By the way, you know there's a movie coming out with Nicolas Cage in it playing Nicolas Cage, right?
How meta.
But yeah, you're right. The Marvel movies are certainly kind of like that, right? And
there's been a lot. You know, the Lord of the Rings films, the Harry Potter films, the Marvel films. I mean, there's been a lot of really big, probably even the Matrix, right? I mean,
yeah. And I guess if we're going to talk about Tom Cruise, we should talk about the Mission Impossible movies.
Oh yeah, I think my favorite film of Tom Cruise is probably A Few Good Men.
Oh, that's a great movie. Great. That's a Rob Reiner movie. It's got Jack Nicholson in it. You know. By the way, just want to give you a follow-up. Again, don't know whether I love you or hate you for making me start watching Drive to Survive, F1 Drive to Survive, but I'm done. I completely crammed it all in because I couldn't stop watching it. And now, of course, like there's a hole in my heart because it's over.
Yeah.
And now I have nothing. There's nothing left to watch.
Oh.
I'm like, oh crap! I got to wait till next season. Now I actually have to watch F1 live.
No, they probably thought that that's what it would do, but I'm just not going to watch the races and just.
You're like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to wait till next season and watch the whole thing and binge it and get
exactly
because it's actually better in the show.
Watch the recap. Exactly.
Right.
It's been a great week, and we'll do it again next week.
Yes, we will.
That's it for another episode. Coming up, we have a series on the phases of the marketing funnel with some special guests. We look at different e-commerce platforms and take the podcast on the road. So don't miss out. Subscribe now in your favourite podcast app.